welcome to Not Another Nux podcast with your hosts Ajay and Hart, brought to you by Loudmouth Brewing. For the best beers and burgers in town, visit Loudmouth Brewing in Abbotsford. Ajay, so much has happened over the last week. Let's start off with the Hamonic on PTO.
Yeah, that news kind of came out of nowhere. It was like late at night last night where the news kind of came out. I think it was Elliot Freeman that broke it.
Yeah.
That we were signing him to a PTO, and this is something I was hoping that they were going to do, kind of follow the same route that the Blues did with Hoffman, where you sign them to a PTO, and then once the players that need to go on LTIR are able to go on it, so that you can kind of maximize cap space. It was good to see Canucks following that trend, getting him on a PTO so that they could. I think this is awesome news, man. I think it really shores up the team, provides that much needed depth on defense.
Oh yeah.
So I was really happy about that. I know you must have been so happy because you were clamoring for him.
Oh yeah, especially with other rumors that were in play. He was one of the players that I really wanted, only because he'd be someone we'd be able to get cheap, much cheaper than any of the other players that were rumored to be on PTO or rumored to come to the Canucks. Just because his last two seasons were pretty bad, just filled with injuries. But overall, he is such a serviceable defenseman. He's great on the PK. He eats up minutes like crazy. He'll definitely bring rest to our top guys, and his overall just experience on the 5th and 6th spot on defense, I think he would do so well. He is just insurance, right? Like you said, and he's depth. This is where the big issue comes into play, though, when it comes to the Canucks fans, especially on Twitter. A lot of them were fighting about who's better, Hamonic or Stecher. Last night, Twitter was just on fire. People were like swearing at each other because they wanted Stecher back, or some people were very happy about Hamonic. What were your kind of thoughts on that whole debacle going on?
Yeah, I mean, that's Canucks Twitter in a nutshell. But if you really want to compare the two, so basically it was Tanev and Stecher, and we replaced those two with Schmidt and Hamonic, right?
Yeah.
I guess the comparable between Tanev, I guess it would be Schmidt, and obviously Schmidt takes that easily. And then you have Hamonic versus Stecher. And Stecher, I've always liked his game. I've always been a bit positive. I've always been a bit more positive when I've looked at Stecher's game.
Yeah.
But in terms of this season, like 1 year, and like the really condensed season that it is, I kind of like Hamonic in that 5th, 6th role more than I like Stecher. Stecher was good. He was very serviceable, kind of similar to Hamonic, but Hamonic's size, I feel like, is a little bit more durable. I know he had a bad season last year, and I'm hoping that's just a blip.
Yeah.
I kind of like Hamonic a little bit more, and it's kind of surprising because I know when we first talked about Hamonic signing with the Canucks early on, I wasn't completely on board with it, and I think the reason why is because I was thinking him being used in like the top 4, top 5, but knowing that he'll probably be slotted in that 6th spot, or even the 5th spot probably, I think that role suits him a lot better.
Absolutely.
And I think by allowing him to play like those penalty-killing minutes, you are able to rush Schmidt, which I think his game is more suited on the power play and on 5-on-5 as opposed to penalty kill.
Agreed.
Right? And Stecher, while he was good 5-on-5, I feel like penalty kill, he was pushed around a lot more, especially when he was trying to protect his own net.
Yeah.
And I think like you would see him kind of get frustrated and kind of take penalties because he would just start cross-checking players because he couldn't box them out.
Yeah.
Whereas I think Hamonic has a little bit more size, so it's easier for him to box players out. And so I think the benefit of having Hamonic will probably be more so seen on the penalty kill, which is why I think he's an upgrade over Stecher in that sense.
What about you? Pretty much agree on most of your points. The one of the things is that, I did love Stecher's tenacity and ability to just bring it every night and just fight, right? But the thing is, sometimes you got like a little dog fighting really hard, but they're not able to really fend off the other person. When it comes to Stecher, he had a really hard time boxing people out. Pretty much just like you said, his board work needed a lot of help. There's many times when he'd be pinned to the board or thrown around. And unfortunately, when you're looking at the D core of your team, and this guy is a young person that's up and coming, and he might have already met his ceiling. When I look at Stecher and I'm looking at his potential growth, I think there is potential growth, but I think about how much higher can this guy grow? Where is his ceiling really at? And to be honest, I don't think it's much higher than what it is now. Only because, and the reason I say this is mainly because of his size. And you know what? If I'm wrong, I'll eat dirt. Like, I'm definitely willing to own up to it. But I think what he brought to the Canucks over the next 3-4 years, as he kind of enters his prime, unless his outlet game doesn't get better, which was decent, but it wasn't significantly great. If that doesn't get better, I don't see him getting better on the defensive side. I think he's relatively pretty decent on defense, but he gets his ass handed to him, dude. And unfortunately, when you get beat up that much, injuries are going to pile up. That's one thing I like about Hamonic, where he is a bigger guy. He is a little more physical. He's a right-handed shot. He has a bomb of a shot. He's got he can bring that kind of stability to the 5-6 pairing that a Stecher just really couldn't. I think that having having Ben and Hamonic on your 5-6 is much more stronger and much more reliable than having Ben and Stetcher. And that's my honest opinion.
But what about in terms of foot speed between the two? I think that's where Hamonic kind of loses it for me a little bit when compared to Stetcher. I feel like Stetcher was a lot more quicker. So like I agree, like he was being pinned down a lot, but in terms of being able to leave his own zone, I feel like he was a lot quicker at it, and like he's a much faster skater. So I think that's one area that I think the Canucks will lose in and kind of miss Stetcher, because I think Hamonic is a lot slower.
But I feel like you do bring up a good point, but my only argument is this. I feel like your foot speed should only be relevant if you're really good at creating space and skating out of trouble, right? And the thing is this, you see people like a PD do that really well. You know, dig people out, skate around people, and just create space. Hughes obviously does an amazing job with that. You know, you've seen some of our young guns in the World Juniors like Podkolzin do that. But the thing is, Stetcher never really brought that immense foot speed where I felt like, or the deeks where I felt like he could really skate out of trouble. And you know, if you feel like I'm wrong, just tell me and give me an example, right? But the thing is, when I look at his play in the defensive zone and his transition up, there was a reason why Benning stated in the beginning of the year, we needed to change our defensive core. We needed a new look. This is not going to work. Schmidt is an amazing transitional player and is much better at bringing the puck out, outlet and his speed than Tanev. That kind of offsets a little bit of what Stetcher has lost. At the same time, dude, I don't feel like Stetcher's skating was as great as people are making it out to be. That's my honest opinion. And that's shown by how many times he was pinned to the board or how many times he'd be boxed out or not able to get the puck and skate it out. And especially on the PK, he doesn't cover a lot of space. He's not able to cover a lot of space. And I know he's running out there a lot and he's getting tired and he's exhausting himself. But unfortunately, due to some of the limitations that he has with his size, there's a reason why our PK did struggle at times. And he was a big part of that. I feel like Hamonic can eat those minutes up. He's a bigger body. He can eat up more shots and more physicality than Stetcher. And even though he had an injury plague season last year, I feel like if he's healthy to start this season and he's able to have balanced defensive minutes, that he can like be focused just on the defensive end, not worry too much on the offense, and that are really good top two pairings, focus on the offensive end. I think that, you know, that is a plus. And to be honest, man, I'm not the only one that thinks this way. Harman Dial, kid genius from the Athletic, also mentioned that 10 times out of 10, he would take Schmidt and Hamonic over Tanev and Stetcher. So, I mean, like, if that's coming from him, you know, I don't think I'm too wrong, you know.
Yeah, no, and that's fair. And like, just kind of one quick note about your ceiling with Stetcher. I actually just checked his age. He's 26. So I think your analysis that he's probably at his ceiling is pretty correct on that. I actually thought he was a bit younger than 26, but I was pretty surprised. But no, so I think Hamonic will probably be a lot better defensively, and I think he'll actually even be able to chip in more offensively than Stetcher was. And I don't mean to pile on Stetcher. I liked him as a player. I liked him on the team. I wish we could have found a way to keep him. But in terms of this season, the way that the season is so condensed, I feel like Hamonic might fit better on this team. And I think his shot is underrated. Like you had said, he definitely has a bomb of a shot. So I think he'll be able to chip in with a few goals to kind of help out. But I really like this defensive core now than I did 48 hours ago.
One thing about Hamonic that's very similar to the whole Stetcher situation that we had was that Hamonic's qualifying offer with Calgary would have been close to, I think it was like 3 million plus or something. Even with all the injuries he had and the limited amount of time he was able to play. So they just couldn't afford that, right? Because they stole our guys. But I am so happy that we finally took one of their guys, right? And we're able to just add a Calgary player.
I have a question for you. Yeah. So with Ferland going on LTR, and we'll kind of touch on him in a bit, that opens up about $2 million, I think, in cap space for the Canucks.
Yeah.
How much do you think we sign Hamonic for? Do you think they give him the full amount that we have, or do you think there'll be a little bit of room left over?
I think the rumors online, I can't remember if it's from Jeff Patterson or Elliot Friedman. I can't remember who I read it from, but on Twitter, they said that the estimate is between 800K to 1.2.
Really?
Yeah. So I thought that was extremely low, right? I thought he'd be getting close to 1.5, 1.7.
That's what I was thinking too.
Yeah. But if we're able to lock him down for 800K to 1.2, I think that leaves us some room for, you know, extra room just in case something does go down and we need to add someone we have many injuries.
Yeah, especially like during the trade deadline.
Yeah. The trade deadline is going to be
interesting. Okay, if they sign him for like around $1 million, that would be so interesting.
So speaking of signing him, pretty much what you alluded to, one of the reasons why we can even afford this guy, the only reason we can afford this guy is because of Ferland's health, right?
Unfortunately,
he's going to be on LTIR to start the season, which is unfortunate. This guy has been, you know, struggling with his health for the last, I think, 2 seasons.
Yeah.
And concussions are so hard. But just with what Dollywall was talking about today on Twitter, they were saying like Ferland's having a hard time right now. You know, like he is really upset with his health and he doesn't know if he will come back. It's been over a year now and his concussion issues just have not stopped. What are your kind of thoughts with just with health, what we can kind of expect, or what you think we can kind of expect with Ferland moving forward?
Yeah, it's really unfortunate. And I think the first thought is just you just want him as a human to be doing better. I think his quality of life is the most important thing. I know I saw a lot of chatter when there was talk of him playing or not, people saying, oh, he should just retire and stuff. Like, guys, like, it doesn't make sense for him to retire because then he's walking away from all that money, right? Like, like people just immediately just start talking about his contract when like this guy's like health is at stake here, right? Like, unfortunately, we've seen so many tough players in the past kind of take their lives just because they can't deal with, you know, the repercussions of concussions and stuff. So like, this is a really serious matter. And I think our number one priority and hope is that he starts doing better as a human, right? Just into his like day-to-day, he's able to like live his life. And but as a hockey player, like it does suck, right? Because when we signed him, I was pretty happy. I thought he was the type of player that would really help us out. He can score goals, he plays physical, right? That's exactly what we needed in our lineup. When he kind of had his injury woes, it was disappointing to see. And when he came back in the bubble, I was a little bit skeptical in terms of him playing, but he looked good like in practice and whatnot. And then unfortunately, the first game back, him fighting, which was a questionable move.
Very questionable.
And just kind of everything that kind of followed after that. It's been really unfortunate to watch. But I think the overall, I guess, point is just that, like, I just hope he's doing better as a human. That's all that really matters.
One question I have for you is this. According to Dollywell, his family and his wife have already talked to him about retiring, and they've talked about his health and just kind of what they want from him as his family. They want him safe and this and that.
Yeah.
Do you think that he is ready to retire, but he's just going to wait till his LTIR kind of pans out? Because I think this is... is this his last year, or he has one more year after this, I think?
No, I think we signed him for 4 years.
Oh, shit. Okay. Damn. Yeah.
You know how Benning does when he has a little bit of money. So I think he has he has 2 more years left.
Okay. And you know what? Like, say his concussions issues continue for the next 2 years. Do you think he just stays in LTIR and collects a check? Or do you think there's a certain time where do you think there's a certain time where the team is like, it's been 2 years now, you're not getting better, we need you to retire or something?
No, there's zero chance of that happening, because if he retires, he's walking away from that money, right? Like,
true.
And that makes no sense on his part. I think like we've seen this in the past with like Hossa, Gabrick, and players like that who have been injured but obviously don't want to retire, because if they retire, they're walking away from millions of dollars. So what I think you'll see in this situation is if his family is able to convince him, and like this guy's a warrior, right? Like I completely understand why he wants to keep playing, is because he just has that mentality of like, this is just what you do. You just pick up your stick, you just fight through it. But hopefully his family is able to kind of reason with him, and if he decides to kind of hang up his skates, he'll just go on LTIR for the remainder of the contract, and then at the end of the contract he'll announce that he's retiring.
And you know what, man, like honestly, I know with our viewership as much as it has grown, if anyone is listening to this that knows Ferland personally, or even Ferland himself, right, which I doubt, just I hope he gets better. Take care of himself first, and I hope his health becomes 100% soon, and his family is able to enjoy like a healthy, you know, father and husband. Just the cap space that he does save though, overall, I mean, outside of Hamonic, do you think there's anything else we can do to add to that cap, or do you think there's any other players that we kind of send down to the minors, or we kind of offset somehow to increase our cap space?
Well, I mean, if we're actually able to get Hamonic on a $1 million deal, that would leave us with like $1 million cap space for this year, which is a pretty solid amount, especially if they're able to save it for the trade deadline, because I feel like there's going to be real value at the trade deadline. I'm not sure what the asking price will be, but I think having $1 million is going to be a lot on trade deadline. But in terms of what else they can do, I don't think there is much else. Like in terms of trading player, like the way that the divisions are now kind of set up, you have your Canadian division and the US division. I saw this, I think, in the meeting or the interview with Benny and Travis Green, where I think Benny mentioned that any players that they acquire from any of the US teams, they have to go through a quarantine process. I think it might be a 7-day quarantine process, but so I think that might cause some issues with trading with US teams. So I think the trading route might be hard. And then in terms of sending players down, like I know there's been like Barchi and stuff that they could potentially send down, but I think the cap saving is pretty minimal. Same thing with like Louis Eriksson. I think they'll just park his ass on the bench and just like hope he retires.
Do you remember when people were actually saying, yo, he's gonna retire, and then he's like, why am I walking away from $5 million?
I know. and like some callers, I think this is on Team 1040, they were saying like, oh man, like this guy has like 2-3 restaurants in Sweden, just retire and just go and like work at your restaurant. Dude, why would he walk away from millions of dollars?
Dude, do you remember when the playoffs were happening, and then Jannik Hansen was callers on Sportsnet 650, and they did like an all-night thing until the last caller. They would stop at like 2-3 a.m.
Yeah.
And I remember people were non-stop. People were asking about Louis Erickson and like trying to convince him to like retire. And he's like, "What the hell?" I sent in a request. I'm like, "Can you please imitate Schneider's voice again?" No, I agree. And to be honest, like you said, yeah, his cap sucks. But people like Louis Erickson, I know he's a hot topic. He's always coming up. He is probably the best meme of this decade for the Canucks. But the thing is, end of the day, like he brings some stability to our PK. I feel.
No, come on, man. He doesn't bring anything to this team.
Yeah, I know. I'm just trying to like spin it positively for our listeners. Like
he brings nothing to this team. Like we get excited when there's an empty net. He might score, but chances are he'll actually probably just put it into his own net like he's done in the past. Like this guy does absolutely nothing for us. And like Benning needs to like flex his muscles and try and get him to retire. I know like Benning's put on some weight, but he needs to do something to put some pressure on Erickson to get him to retire. Like,
dude, did you see
that contract is killing us?
Dude,
did I see what? Sorry,
Benning today in the interview. Did you see him today?
Yeah, I did. Yeah,
man, like this guy's gained a lot of pounds during the quarantine. Not to hate on his size or anything, but he was wearing something on his neck, and for the longest time, I'm like, what is this? Some new fashion thing going on, right? Like, because I know with Gillis, we talked a lot about his neck beard.
Yeah,
and I don't know if maybe he's covering like his like double, triple chin or something. But I'm like, this guy has gained a lot of weight since the last year. But then I realized it's his mask, but around his neck is being stretched out so much.
I know. I thought it was the ascot as well, but
yeah.
But yeah, like back to the whole cap space. Like, is there anyone that you can think of that we might be able to send down or kind of move around to get some?
I think if we move Louis Erickson down, we only save like $800K or something.
It's
right?
Nothing, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, unless we have,
although $800K, if you think about it, though, like almost be $2 million of cap space.
And to be honest, assuming we get Hamonic on a lower end contract, I think that with Louis Erickson, there's really no point. I mean, yeah, the $2 million would be good. I think we do that if we're 100% sure we know that there's someone out there that we can get that we really want for that price range, right? But besides that, I mean, honestly, who are we going to send down? Like the rookies that are trying to make this team and the prospects, we're not going to say much from them. I mean, there's rumors of Sutter being traded or sent down, but I feel like Benny really likes him, and he says that he's a core player. Can't really do anything with that guy. I don't see him going anywhere.
It's kind of funny that you mentioned that. I think Sutter is a player that he would move. I think the one player that they were actually getting calls on was Jay Beagle.
Okay.
Teams actually wanted him, but Benning was like, no, like we need him for our team.
Yeah,
he's like instrumental in the room and this and that. Like,
let's talk about that for a second, though, right? Like, so with Beagle, like, do you think he brings that much to the table that you're willing not to let him go?
No, I don't think he does. Like, granted, like I'm not in the room all the time, so I don't know what he's like saying to the boys, but like he's a great penalty killer. I agree with that.
Yeah,
he can chip in when he can, I guess, on some productive fourth line minutes. But if you could move him and his cap hit for some sort of asset, I would have done it. That made no sense to me why they were holding on to him. We should have just cut our losses with him and just moved him. But Benning loves him, and I don't know. And granted, like I will say, when Troy Stetcher had his exit kind of interview with the Team 1040, the first player that he actually mentioned that he's going to miss was Beagle.
Oh, no way.
So
I missed that.
Maybe there is something to it, but like when you're adding Nate Schmidt, Hamonic, who are two guys that are known to be really great in the room, I don't know if you really need a player like Jay Beagle. So
yeah, and to be honest, did you see Nate Schmidt on the Canucks.com his Happy New Year's, enjoy 2021?
Yeah,
dude, this guy's a bro. like this guy, you can tell he's still living his dorm life. He was just all up with the hands and like, yo guys, enjoy 2021. Don't worry about it. And I'm like, this guy is cool. I want to party with this guy. But you bring up a good point. Beagle is loved in the room, and to be honest, I'm assuming that the offers that Benning got, they were not like retaining any salary, and I feel like I'm sure Benning knows the team more than us. But I mean, if you have Sutter, I know Sutter's injured all the freaking time too. But if you have Sutter, you can put him down to the fourth line. I feel like Beagle is someone you could let go of and save that money. And the thing is this, if we could have saved that money, we could have signed Toffoli. So because literally could
you imagine this team with Toffoli?
Dude, man, the top six is such a big question mark right now. Just because Toffoli's gone. Like,
should we get into that right now?
Sure, let's do it.
Okay, yeah. So like that was one thing that I was thinking about after we signed Hamonic to the PTO. I was like, shit, man, like the defensive core looks pretty solid right now, right? Like there's a lot of depth. I really like how they look there. Goaltending wants a question mark. I think they'll be good.
I think they'll be good. I think they'll be okay.
So I'm not too worried about that. But then like the top 6 is like a massive question mark. And granted, we never had Toffoli a lot last year, and we still scored quite a few goals and were dynamic up front. But still, like with Toffoli in our top 6, I think this team would have been so good.
Yeah, and you know, it's not even the fact, like looking off the score sheet, Toffoli just brings another element around the crease and on the rush that the teams have to look out for. And if teams are looking for one guy, that frees up another guy, right?
Yeah.
So it's just the intangibles that you kind of lose with having a score on your team. And if I look at someone like Beagle, I think Beagle's only making $1 million less than Toffoli, right? Like,
oh my God,
something like that. Less than 2 million, I think. It's like 3 million versus 4 point something. Can't really tell. But going into our top 6 though now, okay, Toffoli's not here. We lost, Madden. We lost a 3rd round pick or a 2nd, I think. It's a huge cost for the team. But looking forward, man, did he bring as much as people thought he did on the score sheet that helped us win games? I'm not sure. I know in the past you mentioned that he helped get the Canucks into the playoffs. Did he? You know what? I'm not sure. If he wasn't in the situation, I'm not sure if he would have helped them actually make the playoffs, because I know against the first 2 rounds, Minnesota and also the Blues, he definitely was not a factor at all because he wasn't even healthy, right? He wasn't even in the lineup. Yeah. So I know he came in early for Vegas too, but I think that losing him sucks, obviously. Going back to that one question that everyone's talking about on Twitter, who is going to take that spot? And today, that was a question asked by a lot of the reporters as Benny and Green had their interview. And Green was asked about Jake. Green just said that he's known Jake for a really long time. He's hoping Jake comes ready for camp because we know for the last 3 camps he didn't. Yeah. And he expects him to be better. Hearing that though, do you think Jake is able to make that step and become the scorer that we want? Because it seems like Green is kind of iffy. It doesn't seem like Green is 100% positive on.
Would you blame him? Like,
not at all. Not at all.
Like this whole market has been clamoring for Tannen to kind of like figure out how to get in shape, and that's actually like really laughable for a like pro athlete, that the fan base just wants you to come in shape. That doesn't make sense for a pro athlete. So do I think he will take the next step? I don't know. I'm optimistic. I think he will be coming into this training camp in shape. Yeah. Because if he doesn't, like, Green's just gonna rip him a new one. Like, he's just not gonna take another training camp where he's not in shape. So I think he'll come in shape. I think he'll put his best foot forward. But will he be able to take that next step and kind of lock his place in the top 6? I don't know. I do think he'll start in the top 6 because I think he'll have a good showing. But his consistency is where the biggest issue is. Yeah. Right. In terms of putting in the same effort night after night. So I don't know. I just can't answer that. Just kind of from what we've seen in the past, to say that he is gonna take the next step is just me just kind of hoping, as opposed to kind of having more of a factual answer behind that. Like, I just don't know whether or not he'll actually take the next step. Do you?
Imagine. I do hope.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Like, we just have to hope.
But the thing is, like, right now, this is the most I've been optimistic, only because I know that he's been training with someone that I know for a fact is kind of like a family man. He has a really strong belief system in getting better and is a hard worker in Myers. I know Myers, he's kind of like, the big giraffe in the room. Not everyone likes him. Some people do. He has a hardcore work ethic. Like, this guy works hard, right? And I've seen some of his training videos, and I've also heard from other reporters, this guy moving his big ass body around and doing the hard work that he's doing, and having someone like Jake live with him and learn those habits. I am very optimistic that this is the year Jake steps it up. But dude, imagine if Jake shows up out of shape for the 4th camp in a row. Right? Even after that, in the 2 weeks he had to stay in Abbotsford or closer to Vancouver rather than Kelowna, living with Myers. Imagine he gets out of shape in that much time. At that point, I'm going back to what I've said many times. Jake is going to be a great player. He just has to get shit together. But is he going to be a great player here? Honestly, I don't know. There's so many distractions here. We know he likes partying. You've heard the rumors. You've heard the rumors from younger people and all sports personnel, reporters. He loves to party. He loves to get off track. And when he does, it hits the fan. Dude, if he shows up again out of shape, and if he has a really bad showing, and if he throws up during the drill again, right? Like, I don't know, package him with, we know we're not going to get what we want from him. If this is the case, package him with Louis Eriksson. Like, Jake is only making like 1 point something, I believe, this year or 2. Package him with Eriksson, send him to like a team for like a 2nd round pick, I feel like, or 3rd round pick, whatever, right? Or whatever we can do through to get them to eat money.
I don't even think you get a second or third for that package.
I know. I'm just being
I
optimistic.
think you're probably looking at like a 6th round pick.
Yeah.
And I'm not like I'm not even trying to be funny. It just the fact that Ericsson's cap hit is so big, and the fact that Virtanen just can't figure it out. There's too much risk for a team to take on for that much cap hit and uncertainty to give up like a high draft pick. I think for 6th or 7th, you might be able to do that.
Yeah.
And honestly, if he comes into camp out of shape, I would probably just trade him for that 7th round pick. Because if we can get a player like Costmar in the 7th round, I would do it.
Yeah, and you know what? I would too, right? And the thing is, just looking at the camp lineup, you look at players like Niels Hoglander coming to the mix. Who else outside of Jake? There's Zach McEwen. He beat him out on a spot when the season restarted again in the playoffs. Those are 2 players that could potentially take that.
Same with Justin Bailey.
Yeah.
Like I know people sleep on him, but like that dude's pretty solid.
Justin Bailey is a real solid player. His speed alone in the top 6 would be immense. And the thing is, he's got hands and he's got a shot. If we give Justin Bailey a shot, I wouldn't even be happy if we lost. I wouldn't even be mad if we lost Jake Virtanen if he showed up on a shape. Right?
But another thing that kind of like annoys me, and I think it will also annoy you as well, is why does Tanner Pearson automatically get that spot next to Bo? Like,
you know what? But it's because of the shutdown role that Bo's placed in, man. Like, who else are we gonna trust in that role? Tanner Pearson works pretty hard on the DN, and I feel like he is a reliable top 6 guy. He can shut down the guy, and then if there's a chance, he'll pot in the odd goal, right? Do I like that type of scenario for a second line? No, but you know what? Kessler played a similar role. Kessler was also kind of like a shutdown guy. Then he would just end up potting a few goals with his line mates. But that being said, man, like there's not a lot of options. If Jake Virtanen like messes this up,
no, this is his year. Like
this is his final year. It has to be his final year.
He's got his spot there. He just needs to like show up in shape, do his part in training camp, put in honest effort, shift after shift, and that top 6 spot that he's been clamoring for is his.
Dude, this is where I wish Podkolzin was available right now. You know?
Oh man,
if he was on the wing with Bo Horvat, holy, this guy's work ethic is insane. And also, I can't remember who it was mentioned this, but they talked about his Corsi, his puck possession numbers, his entrance numbers in the zone. I think it was a Czech. He had 8 possession entries, and 6 of them were possessions by him, and 2 of them were outlet passes, right? And then he had, I think it was 8 exits out of his own zone with the puck. All 8 of them were on his stick with his possession, and just his ability to just back check and get the puck and set up these great chances, man. Oh my god, like if he was available right now, I really think he'd be maybe taking over Virtanen's spot or maybe even Pearson's spot. And you know what? I'm not even joking. I would give Justin Bailey or Zach McEwen a chance in the top 6 over Virtanen, assuming Virtanen doesn't bring what we want him to bring, right?
Yeah, but hopefully he does, and we don't have to worry about that. So
another player in the top 6 that's gonna, or potentially top 6, that was asked about in the interview today was Sven Berchi. And Green said today that he wants Sven to come in shape and be ready to play and have the right mindset. None of us really knew what happened with that situation. We just know that Sven was kind of written off by everyone. And I think Jeff Patterson mentioned this just last month or in the beginning of December. He was asking, I think it was a Swedish interview, or I don't know if it was Jeff Patterson asking directly, but Jeff Patterson did mention that they were talking to Berchi about what he needs to do to get back on the NHL team. And he was just kind of nonchalant with his answers. He's like, oh, I'll do this and that and this. And they're like, no, dude, you need to do anything. You need to work your ass off and do anything you can to get back on a team. But it seems like his mind state just isn't there. He's still asking for way too much. And this goes back to his issues with Calgary. Calgary let go of him for pretty cheap. I think gone for like, what was it? A prospect of ours, right?
Yeah.
They're like his work ethic and his mental attitude just is not up to par, right? With what we want. I mean, what are your kind of thoughts with Green commenting that about him? And do you think that Berchi, I know in the past you said no, but do you think now that Berchi has a chance of maybe having a fresh start? Because it seems like he might get a fresh start.
I mean, no, I think he will definitely get a fresh start. Like, it's a new season. He's got his opportunity to come into camp and fight for top picks. Like, there's clearly a spot available on Bo's line or someone, and he's had chemistry with him in the past. But I don't know, man. Like, his whole attitude with, like, not in terms of, like, him being demoted to the AHL and then not being called up and then not getting a spot and then kind of going back home in Portland and just kind of pouting about it. I don't know. I'm kind of over it, to be honest. Like, I know he didn't join the Canucks during the bubble, and I think it was probably because of his family reasons, which is fine if that is the reason. But I had heard some things where he just didn't really want to be a part of the team and this and that. So I don't want to speculate too much because I don't know what the real answer is. I'll assume that it was just because of his family, which is fine. But But yeah, like I did see that interview and him just kind of being a bit like nonchalant in terms of like wanting his spot back. And I don't know, like for a player that really hasn't done a whole lot in this league, he definitely feel like he deserves more, which is weird. And I don't understand where he gets that from.
To be honest, this is just like kind of the thing that's followed him throughout his entire career since he was a prospect. You think by now he'd mature. He's married now. He's got a kid. You know, he's got to support his family. You think now he doesn't want to go back to Utica or be traded around. He was on waivers, 2 or 3 times, I believe, right?
Yeah.
And
twice,
nobody picked him up for free. No one got him, right? So
Yeah.
obviously the rumors around town are just that he's a bit of a dick to work with, right? But that being said, one person that the team, I believe they were asked about was just like people that are in quarantine. And right now there's someone that does catch my eye, Lucas Jacek. He was a later on pick, I think a few years ago. He was someone that is completely opposite in terms of mental capabilities when it comes to Sven Berchi and wanting a spot. Because I remember this kid was someone that was stuck in his league, not getting the minutes he wanted. He flew himself to Utica and played 5 tryout games. This was like a 4th or 5th round pick, I believe. He played 5 games for free. He scored 4 goals, showed what he's about, showed his back check ability, showed his ability to work, and got a contract from Utica, got an entry level contract with the Canucks. And he's someone that's going to be able to potentially showcase what he has to bring. And I think he will be ready to go, I think, just next week when his quarantine is over. I'm not saying he's going to make the top 6. Just the fact that you have someone like that who's that young to have that work ethic to come and to fight for a spot. You think Sven Berchi would look at that and be like, wake up, right? And be like, yo, this guy's even fighting for a bottom 6 role. This is someone that I'm actually really excited about long term. He does remind me kind of like Jannik Hansen. He is a bit of a pest, but the goals that he brings and the skill that he has is up there, man. But that being said, the bottom 6 is right now clogged, right?
Yeah, it is.
We keep getting depth, guys, and we only have 6 spots in the bottom 6, regardless of what the taxi situation is for this year. Moving forward, you mentioned this before, when it comes to having trades to potentially get a top 6 player, all trades have to follow like a quarantine rule. But one player that I know a few teams have talked about how they want out of their teams, the first one was Laine, and the second one was Gal Cole. Both are all crazy star players. What are your kind of thoughts on them wanting out of their teams, and what would you think the Canucks would have to kind of pay to be able to not only afford them but to sign them and just kind of keep them?
Yeah, I mean, and I think you could even like add to that list. I think Barzal's name has been kind of out there as well. Man.
Barzal will be at the top of the list for me
in terms of like not really wanting to be where he's at. And even like Dubois, like I know he just signed with Columbus, but it was like a really short-term bridge deal. And I think Tortorella's comments today where he was saying that, you know, like if he doesn't want to be here, we'll just kind of talk it out out in the open and this and that. And I think his days are numbered there as well. So there's a lot of young stars that are not happy with their situation and are wanting out. But I think the asking price is going to be crazy high. I think go ahead.
Hypothetically, say Barzal, what do you think the Canucks would have to give up?
Jesus. Oh, man. Yeah, so I think the discussion that I saw on Twitter was basically your starting piece is going to be Besser.
Yeah.
Right? So from Besser, I think you had mentioned is like Besser a first, Ulevy. Shoot, man. Who else would you like have to add to that?
I think you'd probably have to give like a second as well.
Is that worth it though, man? Like for me, no. Like the fact,
honestly,
like, for me, like Besser would have won the Rookie of the Year that Barzal won if Besser was healthy for that entire year. I agree. Barzal's a great skater. He drives play a lot, but to give up that much assets for one player who I'm just not that high on him, and I just don't see the Canucks really coming out on the trade in the positive if they were to give up all these draft picks. Ulevy, you know what, like Ulevy is fine, but I think Besser is a player who I think is going to be so good still for us that I just don't want to give away him in a trade like that, plus a whole bunch of assets for one player.
You make a good point, but
I know like you like it, right? Yeah.
No, like the thing is, okay, first of all, this is never gonna happen, right? Like, right? Like, there's no way we're gonna land Barzal for a trade. The thing is, hypothetically speaking, if I look at Barzal's ceiling and I look at Besser's ceiling right now, I don't know what it is about Besser. I feel like something is going on where this guy has kind of hit a wall. It might just be because of everything that was going on in his personal life and his wrist injuries and whatnot that's happened, and a major back injury that he had. But the thing is, he is just not the same player that we saw in year one, right? Yeah. And that's just a fact. I don't know what it is, but his shot, his speed, and everything is just not the same. When he even won the playoffs, people called him out a bit for not getting the result that people thought he should have. And then when he came back, when he came against the first series against Minnesota, he played very well. I would like to say played very well, but after that, he kind of disappeared again. And the thing is, like, Barzal is someone that just won't disappear. And I'm looking at Besser's ceiling. For some reason, I feel like I get this inkling that he's kind of, I know you just said that he's going to be a great player, but I feel like he's getting kind of closer to the ceiling quicker than I would like, unless he's able to change his foot speed speed up and change his bring his shot back to being as fast as it was before. I don't know what the issue is, but I really want him to be the player that he once was. I feel like for some reason he's not. If I look at Barzal, man, you know what? If they went up to us and they said, give us a first, give us Besser, and give us a second, right? No matter what our first and second round pick is, unless we win the lottery, they're not going to be as good as Barzal. And that's my honest opinion. And the thing is, I don't think that Besser is going to be as good as Barzal either now. Day one, yes, but season 3, for some reason, Barzal's growth has just been continuing to increase, and Besser's has been a little more stagnant.
Right.
This is just what ifs, right? Besser could definitely come in. If Horvath can go from being one of the worst skaters in his draft to being one of the best skaters on our team.
And that's what I was going to say, yeah.
I feel like Besser can definitely change some stuff up, man. He's young enough.
He is definitely young enough. And like you said, I was just going to say that point too. It's just the fact that like Bo Horvath was able to fix his foot speed. I feel like foot speed, a lot of those type of attributes you're able to work on and fix. Hockey IQ, you can't. I feel like Besser is really high on that. I do agree. I think last season it wasn't his best, but I don't know, man. Like, I just don't want to give up on that potential. Granted, Barzal's an amazing player. We would be lucky to have a player like that. But just to give Besser plus like a truckload of assets for Barzal, I don't know. I'm just not ready there. At least not yet. I would like to see him with like a healthy season, and I don't know. But back to your original question, it is crazy seeing the amount of young players wanting out of their situation. Like, this is something we haven't seen a lot of.
This is like NBA style. Man.
Exactly. Like, it's totally just like the NBA. And it's kind of worrying in terms of like, we've got a lot of young players, and like, what if they start wanting out, but in terms of like what the asking price would be for like Lonnie and stuff, I think it's gonna be high. I don't know if a team would be able to match what Jets would want for him, but it's definitely going to be high. But I think like Barzal's a player that you would want to give up a truckload because this guy drives plays. Lonnie, I don't see the same type of player that I see in Barzal, where he needs a player like a playmaking center to play with him, to like feed him the pucks. And I feel like a player like that is just not worth the same as like Barzal, who was able to create his own scoring chances.
Agree.
But it is crazy just to see the amount of young stars that are wanting out.
Yeah, no, it's they're everywhere, Talking just a little bit about Besser again, he is someone that you just are actually rooting for, right? His life story and everything that's gone on around him. It's immense. This guy is like, he is supporting his entire family. His sister has special needs. His dad has a few disabilities right now with his health, right? His mom used to work many jobs. A very good, like, loving family. I actually met the mom in Arizona when I went to watch a game there, and she is one of the most nicest, like most loving souls you've ever met. Like, when you meet someone right away, you're like, this is like the most momly energy you've ever felt before, right? Oozing that, right? And so it really reminds me of the whole Jack Rathbone conversation we had last week, right? But anyways, Jack Rathbone actually was someone that Green and Benning were asked about today, and they asked that if this guy comes in and he is able to showcase, take a spot from someone, are you going to make room and send someone else down? And pretty much they said, yeah, we'll see. We're not really sure. If he does, cool, we'll keep him up. But the thing is, we have other players up here too that are ready to take that step. He's still younger. We might keep him down in the AHL, right, with Utica. I thought that was kind of like a bullshit answer, man. Like, what are your thoughts on that answer?
But like, that question is like an unfair question to ask.
Yeah.
The coach, because like, what are they supposed to say? No, like, if he like comes to camp and blows us away, we're not going to give him a spot. We're not going to make moves because I don't want to make moves. Obviously the answer is going to be like, if he shows up, like, we'll do everything we can, this and that. Like I don't know, like, type of questions I always get like annoyed with when like hockey reporters ask them, just because what the answer is going to be. Like, they have to be like, yeah, of course we're going to.
Yeah.
I am very much looking forward to seeing him play. I think he's going to turn a lot of heads. He was really good in college, and yeah, man, I'm really excited to see him get going this coming week.
No, I agree, and I'm hoping that they have the camp, like, they live stream it. I'm not sure if they will this year because the whole COVID situation, but I hope they do that. That being said, though, just looking at our first pairing and second pairing, Quinn Hughes and Nate Schmidt, and then you have Alex Edler and Myers. For the fifth and sixth pairing, I really still think that if we do end up signing Hamonic, which I think we probably are going to, this is rumor that's been going on since October.
I think Benning had already kind of confirmed that in his meeting today, which I don't think he was supposed to, but he basically did.
He pretty much was like, if he shows up to camp, but we're going to sign him. We will sign him. And I really think that Samuel Levy, they need to get a chance now. And regardless of whether it's out of injuries or this and that, I think he didn't have any games last year except for in the playoffs, right? So I think that this is a time where Levy comes into play, and I could totally see him taking a spot over Jordy Ben. Levy's an extremely smart player. Foot speed could use work, but the thing is, he's extremely intelligent, great vision, great outlet passes, perfect for the modern NHL, right? And people think he's going to be a great player. So I still think that Ulevy is still prioritized by the league over Rathbone due to the age, right? But I still think that's a bullshit answer, only because I would love to hear that, you know what, if Rathbone comes in and does what Quinn Hughes does, or does whatever everyone expects him to do, sure, we'll give him a spot. I want them to be definitive with the answer, right? If someone deserves a spot, damn, they'll take it. We'll see. There's 14 defensemen coming to the camp this year, and then we'll kind of see how things play out. That being said, a lot has happened in the World Juniors recently. There's a huge upset that happened with Sweden against Finland, I believe, right? Sweden was up, I think, 2-0, and then in the third period, Finland came back, and then they won the game with 30 seconds left. Our main prospect, Costmar, for Sweden, he got knocked out. But what are your kind of thoughts on his play throughout the entire tournament?
I had heard his name kind of going into the tournament as a player that might make Sweden. I didn't really put too much stock in it. I'm like, okay, whatever, right? But as the games went on, like, definitely grabbed your attention, and a lot of people were talking about him on Twitter and stuff. Like, wow, this guy is making some showing for a 7th round pick. I watched his game, Russia. Yeah. And I think that's where I think it was kind of his coming out party, just the way that he was such a pest on the ice, and just kind of going at like Russian's top players, including Paul Kozin. I am just blown away as to like how well he played for a 7th round pick, and the fact that he was named as the top 3 players for Sweden in the tournament is amazing. So I think his ceiling in terms of what he could be for us down the line just went up. I was pretty happy about it. What about you?
Same thing. The way he was relied on the PK, the power play, key face-offs, he was out there. This guy's supposed to be like in the 3rd or 4th line. This guy is such a pass, so tenacious, such a smart little ratty player. Totally gets underneath their skin, pissing off people, and then when he gets a chance, he has the hands to score a goal, right? Yeah. Who does he remind me of? I mean, I don't want to say any names. I don't want to put the pressure on him, right? But like, I know there's a one particular rat that we all hate that does score goals and does do really well in getting it underneath other people's skin and plays defensively. But that being said, this guy blew me away, right? I did not expect him to be, first of all, like you said, named top 3 players for Sweden in the entire World Junior tournament, and then just how much the team relied on him. Like he was a key piece. Yeah. Right. And I did not expect that from him. Like, what I saw from him now was kind of what I want to see from players like Adam Gaudette. Like, I want to see that just tenacity and the ability to just fight. I thought he did a great job.
Yeah, like I thought he had a good showing, but like again, like the World Juniors, I think a lot of people put a lot of stock into this 2-week tournament. Look at the leading scorer for the U.S. all time. It's that old prospect that we used to have. Was it Jordan
Schroeder?
Schroeder, yeah. Right, and like that kind of goes to show you that players that do well at this tournament don't exactly pan out in the NHL. So while I think he had a great showing, I think people need to kind of put the brakes a little bit in terms of what he could be. I think I don't want to rain on the parade, because I think for a 7th round pick, the fact that he was a top 3 player for Sweden, I think is amazing. And I think what he showed that he could do more than just put up points. He can drive play, he can defend, just do a lot of the like small things, as J Pat likes to say. I definitely liked his game, but again, it's a 2-week tournament, so I think we kind of have to be a little bit cautious with in terms of what his expectations could be a little bit.
No, I absolutely agree, and I think Harmondale mentioned this too, right? Don't take too much stock into this. It's okay to be excited, but the thing is, there's many players that do terribly in the World Juniors, and they are amazing NHL players, and vice versa, right?
Exactly.
Going on to someone who is doing pretty decent in the World Juniors, and someone that we do expect a lot from, is Podkolzin. What are your kind of thoughts on his game?
I think he's been great. I think he's kind of turned a bit of a switch the past 2-3 games, where he's definitely been driving a lot more of the play. I think he was driving the play early on, but I feel like he's kind of taken that next kind of step where he's just been all over the ice, just doing everything he can. And unfortunately, the Russian squad isn't as deep as it has been in prior years. So his line mates, I feel like their finish has been kind of lacking in terms of, because he's just been setting them up like left, right, and center. So I think his play has been great. I think people don't recognize him as much just because of his point total, and I think that's more so because of his line mates than him. But I think his greatest test though is still coming, because Canada's team looks unbeatable.
And they face Canada tomorrow.
So I think that is going to be a great test for him, and I'm very curious to see how he does. How do you think he'll fare against them?
I think he will, he'll bring his A game, right? He'll be one of the probably top shutdown guys against their top lines, right? And he'll bring some offense here and there. But I think the same thing. He's going to do great forechecking. He's going to set up great plays for his teammates that aren't going to score, right?
But do you wish, though, because I saw this, I can't remember who mentioned it, but do you wish he was a little bit more selfish and just kind of took it upon himself to, instead of always looking for that pass, but just shooting more.
That's a very good point. Yeah, absolutely. I think that I would love to see Pods way more selfish, right?
Yeah.
But I think just the way his game is and the way he is kind of like the main setup guy for his team, and I think that he's the main kind of forechecker, and the way he shuts down the people and the way he like his hits and his tenacity and his physical play, right? I feel like that's kind of the game that he enjoys best, right?
Yeah.
Was he if he was more selfish? Yeah, absolutely. I think he'd have way more goals, right? His shots actually pretty decent. His last game, his overall possession numbers were 88% on the 16 of his transition plays that he had, right? But the thing is this: when you're looking at those stats, he makes the perfect play that can be scored. And when the teammates can't put it in the net, you know, like I feel like it's just, yeah, would I like to be selfish? Yeah, but when you see a player just make that perfect pass and then the other player can't score, you know, it just, you can't really fault them for it. But going back to your question, yeah, if he was more selfish, I think he would have more goals, but I don't think he'd be the same player he is now. Because the thing is, his overall game is amazing. If he was more selfish, I think his overall game that would make him into an amazing NHL player would be lacking.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, but I'm just hoping though that like for the next game against Canada, because I think that's gonna be a big matchup. That if like, you know, his teammates aren't kind of stepping up their game, I just kind of hope to see that he's just able to kind of take over the game a little bit more and just kind of try and do it himself. Just because it's like one of those games. It's like you either go home or you move on. So I am kind of looking for him to kind of take on a bigger role next game and just kind of see if he can maybe pot a couple goals as opposed to trying to set up plays if that's not working. But no, I've been very happy with his play coming into the season, into the tournament, and very much looking forward to the game against Canada.
That wraps up episode 4 of Not Another Knox podcast. I hope you guys had a great new year, and like always, enjoy the music.